Well, the Ash has been and gone, and for 6 days the UK was closed for business, and I do believe this is a picture of what's to come during the Great Tribulation, and I'll talk about that probably in another video. By the time this video goes up, you may well have seen the second of the 3 Prime Ministerial debates taking place in Bristol. In reality, the 3 main parties are all the same. They're all pro-Europe, they are all pro-abortion, they are all pro-civil marriages, so on and so forth. The UKIP, the UK Independence Party, are on the fence when it comes to civil marriages, and the British National Party are racist. So not many options for you if you are a Bible-believing Christian who wishes to vote on May the 6th, and if you are one of those people who are going to vote, let me know what you're going to do. Anyway, I didn't want to talk about politics today. I wanted to do a follow-up video to the last clip on UFOs, flying saucers, and so on and so forth. Somebody once said that the one thing that man learns from history is that man never learns from history. To understand the present and the future, we have to go back. 1939 to 1945, the war is going on. The whole world is at war. A man called Adolf Hitler, known to his friends as Dolphy, is the most powerfulest man in the world, and he was for probably 2 to 3 years. You had 3 superpowers fighting a country the size of Texas. This man was a corporal in the First World War, and literally overnight he came to his own. His speeches mesmerized an entire nation. 90%, at least 90% of German people supported what Hitler was doing. Only 10% opposed him. I'm thinking of the White Rose, for example, and Bonhoeffer, Dietrich Bonhoeffer. But keep this in mind. Germany could be a reflection of what's going to occur at the Second Advent. The Antichrist will arrive on the scene, take the entire world in, and the professing church too, and yet only the elect, according to Matthew 24, are going to be immune from his deception. When man's heart isn't right, the Lord will deceive men. He doesn't do it to poke fun at such a person. He does it because he is holy, and man needs to reflect his Creator's nature and his being. When we go to the tribulation, you see the Antichrist on the world, seen for 3.5 years. Hitler got, we say, 12 years, and by the time he died, 20 million people had died with him. On the last video, we looked at the Nazis and their ties with the occult, and they were very much into the occult. That can't be emphasized enough. It's my belief that Hitler wasn't only demon-possessed for his years in office, but that him, along with his top crew, if that's the right expression to use, somehow made a pact with the devil and his minions. In return, they got a lot of information, a lot of advanced technology, which was then used after the war. 2 things came out of the war, 3 in total, but I'll give you just 2. The first one was there was a mad rush to get as many of these scientists as possible. The Russians put the Sputnik up into orbit in the early 50s thanks to the Nazis, and by 69, again thanks to the Nazis, the Americans had landed on the moon. With that came a lot of information to run parallel to not only the arms race, but these flying saucers, these circular objects which the Nazis were using as early as 1942. It's very important to try and pull all this together. Russia and America are locked in this arms race, but by 1948 Israel goes back into the land. Russia and America vote at the United Nations to allow Israel back into the land, and the Lord blesses that, and the next 50 years they are both locked in a Cold War. America can't destroy Russia, Russia can't destroy America, but Israel nonetheless is prospering throughout this whole period of time. 1999, the allies, NATO to be precise, go to war against Yugoslavia, Slobodan Milosevic. And on one of the many bombing nights, one of the US stealth planes, which should be invisible, is shot down over Serbia. And at the time people were saying, how can it be that an invisible plane is shot down? And one of two options was put forward. The first option was that somehow there was a mole from the French that were leaking the coordinates to the Serbs. They shot it down. And the second option put forward was it was a lucky guess. Either way, what we do know is that the plane was taken to Moscow and was never returned. So now the Russians have got their hands on the stealth bomber. They now know how these planes operate and how they function. So it's not difficult to come to the assumption that perhaps they've got their own fleet of ships now, possibly flying saucers, who knows. We do know that Antropov ordered for 13 years the Red Army every night to look up at the skies to catch these UFOs that were buzzing over Russia, while at 40, 50 plus thousand feet British and American planes are flying over Russia taking photographs, which they still do to this day. And don't worry, the Russians are also spying on America and Britain and other nations too, not just one-way traffic. Go forward a few years and you find that another American plane gets shot down, this time over China. The crew are arrested and detained for several days, but they get released. But surprise, surprise, the plane gets retained. The Chinese keep the plane and they strip it right down. So now the Chinese have the coordinates, they have the makeup, they have the plans, they know how these planes are working. So you've got Russia, America and China all using the same sort of information, which I believe goes back to the Nazis, who got it from the devil. Now this is just a hypothesis, this isn't doctrine, I'm not going to be dogmatic on it, it's just a hypothesis that I've got. One other thing I want to say is that people who have seen UFOs, whether government or demonic, but people who have seen them and those who have claimed to have been abducted have all got one thing in common. They've all been involved with the occult, or their families have been involved in the occult. Whether it's seances, palm reading, astrology, Ouija boards, all that wickedness, they've all got that in common. Now I don't believe in generational curses, but I do believe in the consequences of what your great-great-grandfather did or your great-great-grandmother did. I believe that continues on. For example, if your great-grandfather was an alcoholic, the chances are you will be an alcoholic, because your father was an alcoholic and you were raised in that same environment. So you need to break that continuing sin, and you can only do that through the blood of Christ. Pulling all this together, we come to the conclusion that man is wicked. Psalm 99:8, Romans 1:30 speaks about these inventions. It may have started out as a bit of fun, but it has distracted a lot of people from what the Lord wants them to know, and that of course is that they're going to die and they're going to be judged. The Antichrist will arrive on the scene, and there's every chance that he will use these objects which have been used in theatre, shall we say, for many, many years. Just look out, watch out, try not to get sucked into this whole movement. It is a very financial, a very lucrative industry, and I do think that Christians should be aware of this. You can never know enough, but above all you need to be renewing your mind day by day. Romans 12. So if you are involved in the occult, or you ever have been involved in the occult, then according to research you are prone to having a visit from these spaceships. And I'm going to suggest that they are demonic, 10%, and the 90% are probably government made, simply as a cover for the flights over hostile nations, shall we say. So I'm going to sign out now, and just hope that you are thinking about what I've said. Check it out yourself, and I'll talk to you soon.